November 2nd, 1944, 3:47 p.m. Somewhere over Czechoslovakia, Lieutenant Bruce Carr watches the oil pressure gauge drop to zero. Black smoke pours from the cowling of his P-51 Mustang. The Merlin engine screams, metal grinding against metal. 30 seconds ago, he was leading a strafing run against a German airfield. Now he's a dead man flying flak. An 88mm shell fragment punched through the engine compartment and severed the oil line. Without oil, the Rolls-Royce Merlin will seize in approximately 90 seconds. After that, the propeller becomes a 400-pound anchor, and the P-51 becomes a glider with the aerodynamic properties of a brick. Carr has one option: bailout. He pulls back the canopy, rolls the dying Mustang inverted, and drops into the freezing Czechoslovakian sky. At 8,000 feet, the silk canopy deploys. Below him, enemy territory stretches to every horizon. He's 200 meters behind German lines. No radio, no weapon, except a .45 pistol with 7 rounds. No food, no water. November in Focke-Wulf, Central Europe. Temperature dropping below freezing at night. The mathematics of survival are brutal. American pilots shot down over occupied territory have a 23% chance of evading capture and returning to Allied lines. The other 77% spend the rest of the war in Stalagloo 3 or end up in unmarked graves. Bruce Carr is about to become the exception to every statistic ever written about down pilots, because in 4 days, he won't just escape. He'll steal one of the most advanced fighter aircraft in the German arsenal and fly it home. Bruce Ward Carr was born January 28, 1924 in Union Springs, New York. There was nothing remarkable about his childhood except one thing. At 15 years old, in 1939, Bruce Carr learned to fly. The year matters. In September 1939, Germany invaded Poland. World War II began. A 15-year-old farm kid in upstate New York couldn't know that within 5 years he'd be dogfighting mess over Berlin. But some part of him must have sensed that flying was about to become the most important skill a young man could possess. Not in a military program, not in a formal school. A local crop duster named Earl let the kid take the controls of his biplane. One summer afternoon, Carr was hooked. By the time he turned 16, he had more stick time than most Army Air Corps cadets. September 3rd, 1942. Carr enlists in the United States Army Air Forces. He's 18 years old, at the Aviation Cadet Training Program. His instructor turns out to be the same man who taught him to fly 3 years earlier. Earl had joined up too. He takes one look at Carr's application, sees the 240 flight hours already logged, and recommends him for the accelerated program. By August 1943, Carr is a flight officer. By February 1944, he's in England, assigned to the 381st Fighter Squadron, 363rd Fighter Group, 9th Air Force. His first assignment: fly the P-51 Mustang. The P-51 is the finest propeller-driven fighter aircraft ever built. The numbers tell the story. Range 31,650 miles with drop tanks, enough to escort bombers from England to Berlin and back. Top speed 437 miles per hour at 25,000 feet. Service ceiling 41,900 feet. Armament 635 caliber M2 Browning machine guns with 1,880 rounds total. Enough firepower to shred a German bomber in a 2-con burst. Before the P-51D arrived in numbers, American daylight bombing raids suffered catastrophic losses. The 8th Air Force lost 60 bombers in a single mission over Schweinfurt in October 1943. Without fighter escort, The B-7s and B-24s were sitting ducks for Luftwaffe interceptors. The Mustang changed everything. For the first time, American fighters could accompany bombers all the way to the target and back. German pilots called them the long-nosed bastards. The Luftwaffe began hemorrhaging experienced pilots faster than training schools could replace them. Carr falls in love with the aircraft instantly. The cockpit fits him like a glove. The controls are responsive, the visibility excellent, the power intoxicating. He names his plane Angel's Playmate. He has no idea that in 8 months he'll be sitting in a very different cockpit, one with German labels and a swastika on the tail. On March 8, 1944, Flight Officer Carr scores his first combat engagement. He spots a Messerschmitt Bf 109 over Germany and gives chase. The German pilot tries to escape by diving for the deck, flying just above the treetops. Carr follows. The chase covers 40 meters at speeds exceeding 400 miles per hour. Both aircraft barely clearing the German forests. Carr fires. His rounds miss. He fires again. One bullet clips the 109's left wing. The German pilot panics. He pulls up, ejects, but he's too low. The parachute doesn't fully deploy. The pilot hits the ground at 60 miles per hour. The 109 crashes into a hillside. Carr returns to base expecting congratulations. Instead, his commanding officer calls him into the office. "Carr, that was the most over-aggressive flying I've ever witnessed. You nearly killed yourself chasing that German into the trees. You're being transferred. The kill doesn't count." Technically, Carr didn't shoot the plane down. The pilot killed himself trying to escape. It's the first indication that Bruce Carr doesn't think like other pilots. Where others see recklessness, he sees opportunity. Where others see limits, he sees suggestions. May 1944. Carr transfers to the 353rd Fighter Squadron, 354th Fighter Group, the Pioneer Mustang Group, the 1st Army Air Forces unit in Europe to fly P-51s in combat. These are the best Mustang pilots in the war. Carr fits right in. June 17, 1944, 11 days after D-Day, Carr scores his first official kill, sharing credit for an Fw-190 destroyed over Normandy. 2 months later, he makes second lieutenant. September 12, 1944. Carr's flight strafes a German airfield, destroying several Junkers J-88 bombers on the ground. On the return flight, they spot 30 Fw-190s 2,000 feet below them. Carr doesn't hesitate. He dives. In the next 3 minutes, he shoots down 3 German fighters. When his wingman takes damage, Carr escorts him all the way back to friendly territory, foregoing any additional kills to protect his fellow pilot, the Silver Star, second highest combat decoration for valor. October 29, 1944. Carr downs 2 Bf-109s over Germany. Total confirmed kills, 7.5. He's officially an ace. 4 days later, his luck runs out. November 2nd, 1944. Carr hits the frozen Czechoslovakian ground hard. The parachute landing isn't gentle. His ankle twists on impact. Not broken, but badly sprained. He gathers the silk canopy and buries it under leaves. The Germans will search for him. They always search. He has maybe 20 minutes before patrols arrive. Carr knows the airfield he was strafing is approximately 5 miles north. He knows the Germans will expect him to move south or west toward Allied lines. He knows his survival depends on doing something unexpected. He heads north toward the enemy. The logic is counterintuitive, but sound. The Germans will search outward from his landing site, assuming he's running away. They won't expect him to move closer to their base. And if he's going to survive, he needs supplies, food, water, maybe a weapon. The airfield has all three. Day 1. Carr moves through the forest, staying off roads, traveling at night. His flight suit provides minimal warmth. His ankle throbs with every step. He hasn't eaten in 18 hours. Day 2. He finds a stream and drinks. The water is cold enough to numb his throat. He spots a German patrol 200 yards away and lies motionless in a ditch for 2 hours while they pass. Day 3. The hunger becomes impossible to ignore. Carr is burning 4,000 calories a day just staying warm. He's consumed 0. His body begins cannibalizing muscle tissue for energy. He makes a decision. Tomorrow, he'll surrender. The Luftwaffe treats captured pilots better than the Wehrmacht or the SS. Aviators have a code. They respect fellow flyers, even enemy ones. Carr knows pilots who've spent time in Stalag Luft 3rd. They describe it as boring, but survivable. 3 meals a day, Red Cross packages, letters from home. It beats starving to death in a Czechoslovakian forest. Day 4, late afternoon. Carr reaches the edge of the German airfield. He's positioned in a tree line overlooking the eastern perimeter. Through the branches, he can see hangars, fuel trucks, aircraft, VW-90s, mostly a few Bf-109s. He plans to wait until morning, then walk to the main gate with his hands up. But as darkness falls, Carr notices something. The revetment is 80 yards from his position. A Focke-Wulf Fw 190 sits inside, partially concealed by camouflage netting. 2 German mechanics are working on the aircraft under portable lights. Care watches. The mechanics check the fuel level. Full tanks. They run up the engine. The distinctive sound of the BMW 801 radio roaring to life. They cycle the propeller, check the magnetos, run through what appears to be a complete pre-flight inspection. Then they shut it down, cover the cockpit, and walk back toward the main hangars. The Fw-190 is ready to fly. Carr's brain begins calculating. He's never flown a German aircraft. He doesn't speak German. He has no idea where the controls are, how the engine starts, or how the landing gear operates. But he knows how to fly. He's logged over 500 combat hours. Every aircraft has a throttle, a stick, and rudder pedals. The physics don't change because the labels are in German, and he's looking at a fully fueled fighter aircraft with no guard. The surrender plan evaporates. Care waits until 3 a.m. The airfield is quiet. Skeleton crew on night watch. No activity near the revetment. He moves. 80 yards of open ground. No cover. If anyone looks in his direction, he's dead. Carr covers the distance in 40 seconds. Staying low, his twisted ankles screaming with every step. The Fw-190 is larger than he expected. Wingspan 34 feet, length 29 feet, empty weight 7,000 pounds, nearly a ton heavier than the P-51. The cockpit sits high, protected by 30mm armored glass. The BMW 801 engine dominates the nose. A 14-cylinder air-cooled radial producing 1,700 horsepower. The Focke-Wulf Fw 190 is Germany's premier fighter. First deployed in 1941, it outclassed the Spitfire so thoroughly that the British rushed development of new variants just to compete. German pilots called it Würger, the butcher bird. Allied pilots called it Trouble. The aircraft Carr has just climbed into is likely an A8 variant, the most common model in late 1944. Standard armament 213mm MG-131 machine guns in the cowling. 4 20mm MG-151 cannons in the wings. Maximum speed 48 meters per tame. Range 500 meters. A deadly machine in the hands of an experienced pilot. Carr is not an experienced Fw-190 pilot. He's never sat in one before, he's never seen the inside of one. Everything he knows about this aircraft comes from gun camera footage of them exploding. Carr climbs onto the wing. The canopy is unlocked. He slides it back and drops into the cockpit. The first thing he notices, he can't read anything. Every label, every gauge, every switch is in German. The instrument panel is a wall of incomprehensible Gothic script. The second thing he notices, the cockpit is smaller than the P-51S. His knees press against the instrument panel. The control stick falls naturally to his right hand. The throttle is on the left, same as American aircraft. Some things are universal. Carr has approximately 4 hours until sunrise. He uses every minute. He traces wiring. He identifies gauges by their position. Airspeed is usually top left. Altimeter top center, engine instruments clustered on the right. He finds the fuel selector, the magneto switches, the propeller control. The starter is the critical piece. In the P-51, it's an electrical system. In the Fw-190, he has no idea. On the right side of the cockpit, he finds a T-shaped handle with German text. The word looks vaguely like starter. He pulls it. Nothing happens. He pushes it. A mechanical whine fills the cockpit. An inertia starter winding up like a toy. He lets it spin for 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Then he pulls the handle. The BMW 801 coughs, catches, roars to life. The noise is apocalyptic. 1,700 horsepower at idle. Still sounds like thunder. Every German on the airfield will hear it. Carr has seconds. He doesn't have time to find the runway, doesn't have time to check the brakes or the flaps or the radio. He shoves the throttle forward. The Fw-190 lurches. The tail comes up almost immediately. This aircraft is nose-heavy, eager to fly. Through the pre-dawn darkness, Carr aims between two hangars. Ground crew are emerging, shouting, pointing. 60 miles per hour, 70. The hangars rush toward him. At 90 miles per hour, Carr pulls back on the stick. The Fw-190 leaps into the air, clearing the hangar roofs by what feels like inches. He's airborne in a stolen German fighter 200 meters behind enemy lines. Now comes the hard part. The Fw-190's cockpit is a nightmare of unfamiliar systems. But Carr solves problems one at a time. Landing gear. He finds a lever on the left. Console, pulls it. A satisfying thunk. The gear retracts. The aircraft accelerates. Compass. He identifies the gyro compass. Orients himself west-southwest toward France, toward Allied lines. Altitude. He climbs to 500 feet, then thinks better of it. At altitude, he's visible to German radar, to German fighters, to German anti-aircraft batteries tracking everything that moves. He drops to treetop level, 50 feet above the ground, 280 miles per hour. The Czechoslovakian forest becomes a green blur beneath his wings. This is insane flying. One mistake, one moment of inattention, and he'll cartwheel through the trees at 300 miles per hour. But at treetop level, he's invisible to radar. He's too low for flak. He's too fast for ground troops to target. The fuel gauge shows full tanks. The Fw-190 has a range of approximately 500 meters. France is 200 meters away. He has margin for error. For 45 minutes, Carr flies west. The sun rises behind him. The terrain changes from forest to farmland to the scarred battlefields of eastern France. He crosses the front lines, and that's when his problems really begin. Allied anti-aircraft gunners see what they expect to see. A German Fw-190 flying at low altitude toward Allied positions. They open fire. 50 caliber tracers arc toward Carr from every direction. He's taking fire from his own side. He has no radio to announce himself, no way to signal that he's friendly. The Fw-190 still carries German markings, the black crosses on the wings, the swastika on the tail. Carr does the only thing he can, fly lower and faster. He drops to 20 feet, hedge hopping. The propeller wash kicks up dust from the roads below. French civilians dive into ditches as he screams overhead. American soldiers fire rifles at him. Every gun in France is shooting at Bruce Carr. He later estimates that every .5 caliber machine gun in existence took shots at him during that 30-mile sprint to his home base. The Fw-190 takes hits. He can hear the impacts, feel the shudders, but the German engineering holds. The aircraft keeps flying ahead. He recognizes the airfield, a 66-oar Conte, France, home of the 354th Fighter Group. He lines up for approach. No time for pattern work, no time for radio calls. The anti-aircraft batteries are already tracking him. That's when he discovers the final problem. The landing gear won't come down. Carr pulls the lever. Nothing. He pumps it. Nothing. He looks for a backup system, an emergency release, anything. The Fw-190's landing gear operates on hydraulic pressure. There's a selector valve that directs pressure either to retraction or extension. Carr doesn't know this. He doesn't know which lever controls the valve. He doesn't know that he's been pulling the wrong handle for the last 5 minutes. Below him, the 354's anti-aircraft crews are loading their 40mm B-4's guns. A German fighter is circling their field. They're preparing to blow him out of the sky. Carrer makes a decision. He's going to belly land. He lines up with the grass beside the main runway. Lowers the flaps that lever, at least he figured out, and cuts the throttle. The Fw-190 sinks 100 feet, 50 feet, 20 feet. The aircraft hits the grass at 90 miles per hour, slides for 300 yards, throws up a rooster tail of mud and debris, and grinds to a stop. Carr is alive. Within seconds, the Fw-190 is surrounded. Military police, rifles raised, screaming at the pilot to get out of the cockpit. They're expecting a German. They're expecting a prisoner. The canopy slides back. A mud-splattered American in a torn flight suit climbs onto the wing. I'm Captain Carr of this goddamn squadron. Nobody believes him. He's been missing for 4 days. He's supposed to be dead or captured, and he just belly-landed a German fighter on their airfield. The MPS keep their rifles trained on him until a staff car arrives. Colonel George Bickle, commanding officer of the 354th Fighter Group, steps out and looks at the scene. The destroyed Fw-190, the mud-covered pilot, the bewildered military police car. Bickle says, "Where in the hell have you been, and what have you been doing now?" The story spreads through the Army Air Forces like wildfire. The pilot who stole a German plane, the only American in the European theater to take off in a P-51 and return in an Fw-190. But Carr's war isn't over. 5 months later, April 2nd, 1945, near Schweinfurt, Germany. First Lieutenant Carr is leading a flight of 4 P-51s on a reconnaissance mission. They're at 15,000 feet when Carr spots movement above them. German fighters, more than he can count. A massive formation stacked from 18,000 to 25,000 feet. Kay does a quick estimate. 60 aircraft, maybe more. Bf-109s and Fw-190s mixed. The largest concentration of German fighters he's ever seen. He has 4 P-51s. The German formation is massive. Bf-109G10Es and Fw-190D9Es, the latest variants of both aircraft. Fresh pilots. Relatively speaking, the Luftwaffe has been running out of experienced aviators since early 1944. But 60 aircraft is 60 aircraft. Standard tactics dictate immediate evasion. 4. Against 60 is suicide. The Germans have altitude advantage, numerical advantage, and positional advantage. Every manual ever written says, disengage and report. Let the bomber escort squadrons know what's coming. Get out alive. Bruce Carr has never been particularly interested in what the manuals say. He keys his radio. Engaging. His wingmen don't hesitate. They've flown with Carr before. They know what he's capable of. They know that when Carr says engaging, he means it. The 4 Mustangs climb into the German formation. What happens next is one of the most remarkable air battles of World War II. The Germans don't expect an attack. They're flying in a loose defensive formation, conserving fuel, probably heading to intercept a bomber stream. 4 American fighters climbing directly into their midst. Makes no tactical sense. Kay uses the confusion. He slips into the back of the formation, positions himself behind a Bf-109, and fires. The German pilot never sees him. The 109 explodes. Carr shifts to another target, an Fw-190. 3 seconds of .5 T-caliber fire. The Focke-Wulf rolls inverted and plummets toward the earth. The German formation begins to scatter. They don't know how many Americans are attacking. They don't know where the fire is coming from. Carr moves through them like a wolf through sheep, picking targets, firing, moving. 3rd kill, 4th kill, 5th kill. In the space of 3 minutes, First Lieutenant Bruce Carr shoots down 5 German aircraft. His wingmen account for 10 more. 4 American pilots, 15 German aircraft destroyed, 0 American losses. When the ammunition runs out, Carr leads his flight home. The surviving Germans, 45 of them, scatter across the German countryside. April 9th, 1945. Bruce Carr is promoted to captain. The Distinguished Service Cross, second only to the Medal of Honor, is awarded for his actions on April 2nd. The citation reads, completely disregarding his personal safety and the enemy's overwhelming numerical superiority and tactical advantage of altitude, he led his element in a direct attack on the hostile force, personally destroying 5 enemy aircraft and damaging still another. Carr becomes the last ace in a day in the European theater of World War II. No American pilot will match his feat before Germany surrenders. By the end of the war, he's flown 172 combat missions and accumulated 14 or 15 confirmed aerial victories. The records differ, plus numerous ground kills. He's 21 years old. The war ends. Bruce Carr stays in uniform. He joins the Acrojets, America's first jet aerobatic demonstration team, flying F-80 Shooting Stars. Then Korea, where he flies 57 combat missions in F-86 Sabres with the 336th Fighter Interceptor Squadron. He commands the 336th from 1955 to 1956. Colonel's eagles on his shoulders. The kid from Union Springs, New York, running a fighter squadron. Then Vietnam. Colonel Carr, now 44 years old, flies 286 combat missions in F-100 Super Sabres. Close air support, bombing runs, straying missions. The same work he did 24 years earlier in a different war, in a different aircraft. 3 wars, 3 aircraft generations, 505 team combat missions total. He retires in 1973. April 25th, 1998, St. Cloud, Florida. Bruce Ward Carr dies of prostate cancer. He's 74 years old. They bury him in Arlington National Cemetery. Section 64, grave 6,922. Among the heroes of every American war since the Revolution, within sight of the tomb of the unknown soldier across the river from the Lincoln Memorial. The headstone lists his rank: Colonel, United States Air Force. It lists his decorations: Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star, Legion of Merit, Distinguished Flying Cross with clusters, Air Medal with clusters, Purple Heart. It lists his wars: World War II, Korea, Vietnam. It doesn't mention the Focke-Wulf. It doesn't mention the 4 days in the Czechoslovakian forest. It doesn't mention the belly landing with no gear, the MPs pointing rifles at his face, the commanding officer asking, "Where the hell have you been?" Some stories don't fit on headstones. There are 2 ways to tell the story of Bruce Carr. The first is the legend. The downed pilot who stole a German fighter from an active airfield, figured out the controls by trial and error, and flew 200 miles back to Allied territory, while every gun in Europe shot at him. The second is the documented record. The ace with 15 kills, the Silver Star recipient, the Distinguished Service Cross winner, the man who led 4 aircraft against 60-1. Both are true. Both are remarkable. But here's what matters. In November 1944, an American pilot found himself alone, unarmed, and stranded 200 meters behind enemy lines. The rational choice was surrender. The safe choice was giving up. Bruce Carr chose differently. He looked at a German fighter aircraft covered in unfamiliar instruments and saw not an obstacle, but an opportunity. He climbed into a cockpit he'd never seen, started an engine he'd never operated, and flew an aircraft he'd never touched before. Not because he was reckless, because he refused to accept that his options were limited to the ones that seemed possible. 4 months later, faced with 60 enemy fighters and 4 friendly aircraft, he made the same calculation. The rational choice was retreat. The safe choice was survival. He chose attack, and 15 German pilots never made it home. In 1997, a year before his death, Colonel Carr flew one more time. Kermit Week's Fantasy of Flight Museum in Florida had invited him for an air show. Carr, now 73, arrived in a P-51 Mustang. His own aircraft maintained a flying condition. He came in over the crowd at 300 knots, 50 feet off the deck. The same approach he'd used 50 years earlier, flying a stolen Focke-Wulf into a French airfield while his own side tried to shoot him down. Some things apparently never change. The crowd watched a 73-year-old man throw a World War II fighter through maneuvers that would challenge pilots half his age. Loops, rolls, high G turns that pressed him into his seat at forces that would gray out younger men. When he landed, someone asked him what he was thinking up there. He shrugged. Same thing I was always thinking. What's the airplane capable of? What am I capable of? Let's find out. That's the Bruce Carr story. Not the stolen fighter, not the 15 kills, not the 3 wars and 51 combat missions. The story is simpler than that. The story is a pilot who looked at impossible odds and asked, "What else can I do?"